Hi, I'm Clate Mask, and on the Conquer the Chaos podcast, I talk with inspiring business owners about what it takes to build a great business and a great life. That means more money, more time, more control, more impact, more freedom. So keep listening to hear the tough lessons they learned so you don't have to repeat them. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Conquer the Chaos podcast. I am Clate Mask, your host and author of Conquer the Chaos, and excited to spend a little time talking about the number one key to success for entrepreneurs that I've got a ton of passion about, and I've got a great shared experience with our guest today, and we're going to talk about mindset and how critical that is and how it actually plays out for entrepreneurs. So please welcome a longtime friend, great partner for our business, and not only a fantastic automation expert, but just a wonderful human. Dobbin Buck, so great to have you here. Thanks for being here.
Wow, Clate, couldn't be happier to be here with you. I was just so excited all day to be able to connect with you, an individual that has been, I would say, you've been a critical aspect to my success and growth. So glad to be here full circle and joining in with you. Have some fun.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's take just a second. So by the way, Dobbin is the co-owner and chief revenue officer of GetUWired, which is an agency that helps small businesses grow with automation. Dobbin, why don't you take a second and just tell a little bit more? I mean, we've worked with you and GetUWired for 15 years probably. It's been a couple different lifetimes in business, I would say. But tell the audience a little bit about what you do at GetUWired.
Sure. GetUWired is 23 years old, believe it or not, as an organization, and over the course of 23 years, we've grown from, I think, around a 5-person team to over 50, and right now I'm in the mid-40s with the amount of team members, local team members that we have. We're a full-service digital marketing agency that certainly we are adept in multiple verticals, influencers in the realm of marketing, automation, creatives, and one of our strong suits where we're called upon a lot these days is because I have 14 full stack developers. We're doing advanced integrations and work with a lot of SaaS companies in regards to their integrations out into other SaaS or third-party integrations. So we're keeping really busy. I have a really cool, creative, and fun group of young, everybody seems young to me these days, professionals that from the backwoods of North Georgia, a tourist destination, we're able to have an amazing impact on the world of small business and software. So thrilled to be here, Clate.
I love it. Love what you guys do at GetUWired is amazing, and you're the integrations you do to get customers' systems all talking to each other so that you can effectively execute automation is, you guys are specialists at that. You guys do great. So, okay, well, let's some of the audience will recognize your name from the book. I talked about you in the book. In fact, Matt, who facilitates the Conquer the Chaos podcast, he and you and I were all talking just a minute ago and remembering that as I was finishing the book, you and I were talking in Costa Rica, and I said, "Hey, can I use this story? We've known each other for years," and you were kind enough to allow me to do that. And it's a pretty personal story, but we were talking about the importance of getting our mindset right, getting our identity right, and getting ourselves as entrepreneurs into a place where we can deal with all of the crap and chaos that comes at us. And it's just a lot, and it doesn't matter if you are just getting started or if you've been running the business for 5 years or 10 years, there's just a lot of chaos. It's the way it is. If you're growing, there's chaos. And so how you conquer that and deal with it starts in the mind. And that's what I want to talk about today, because there's different places where it comes into play. But you were pretty generous in sharing your story or allowing me to share your story. And you had to overcome a lot in terms of getting your mindset right to be a successful entrepreneur. Will you take just 2 minutes and talk a little bit about that. Maybe give a little insight into what your backstory is and what you needed to do to get your mindset into a place where you could win in business.
Absolutely. So the origin story, so to speak, is that uh, I was in the museum trade, which I followed in my father's footsteps. So my father did the museums, like the Statue of Liberty Museum, Smithsonian institutions,
Okay.
milestones of flight in the Air and Space Museum, a
Hmm.
lot of big high-profile museums, and I was along for the ride in my younger days, and then I grew into a career in museum development. And by that I mean all of the exhibits and theming and everything that goes inside the building, not the architecture on the outside of the building. So in the course of that career, a lot of money, a lot of ego flying around, a lot of different things. As a young business professional, I was not well equipped to handle, though professionally I handled myself, but the inside job was pretty chaotic, and I fell into a pathway of drugs and alcohol to where at the age of 36, over a long period of trying to get a handle on that and all, I found myself homeless, penniless, familyless, friendless, dying in a hospital.
Hmm.
And I, not to get religious, but I remember very clearly a prayer that I made that was, I will be satisfied if, please, if I can just have a normal life. I
Hmm.
don't need to be wealthy. I don't need to have some idealistic success. I just want to live and have some sense of satisfaction, and not be in this nightmare that uh, I'm trying to come out of. And
Yeah.
fortunately, that was answered through a series of different humans and friends and people that I align myself with that had either made that journey before me or were currently in the same spot as me. And slowly I was able to come out of, severe brain damage and physical damage. And, I went from being a museum executive to, after I got cleaned up, my first job was a stock boy in a variety store in Buckhead, Atlanta. And then I graduated to becoming a barista. And there's a bunch of baby steps back into what we would say the world of bigger business, or definitely the gateway to entrepreneurship. And sort of, interestingly, the business journey is a lot about wrapping people around myself that have been where I want to go and can hold me accountable and can be friends, and and we grow together, we move together, we serve each other. So there's some parallels between the business path and the path of survival that I took out of addiction and alcoholism, and the tornado of chaos that I had created in my life.
Hmm. Thanks for sharing that. I know, you know, most people who know you and see your success today would never realize that where you were at 36 and what you went through. And, when you've been to that dark side, I talk about the dark side of entrepreneurship. It happens, it's the dark side of success in a lot of ways. It's not, in the book, I talk about it not just being the dark side of entrepreneurship is not just the struggle, but it's also the success a lot of times can eat people up on the inside and cause people to, you see death and drugs and divorce and all kinds of difficult things. So when I'm interested to hear as you describe, when you came out of that dark side and being acquainted with it, what did you find as you started to have success in the business? What did you need to do to keep your mindset in the right place and not succumb again to that dark side?
For me, it was about not going back to my comfort zone. So not trying to reignite my earlier networks, the things that I fell back upon, relationships, all of that. It was net new moving forward, new relationships, new vision, and really just being open to what comes in front of me, and being aware enough to see where there's an opportunity, and having the self-confidence to say yes to opportunities, saying, I'm capable of doing this, I'm capable of getting involved in this, and I can bring value to this opportunity that's in front of me.
Okay.
And early on, those were simple things, and they progressively got bigger and bigger and bigger, and more money, and more responsibility, and then responsibility to a lot of people
Hmm.
in the end.
Okay, we'll come back to that, the responsibility and the bigger and bigger, and but you said two things. One was who you surrounded yourself with, and the journey out of addiction in surrounding yourself with people who had been where you wanted to be, um, or who are where you want to be. But then also, um, you know, the the fact that you had the self confidence to accept things that were coming your way. When you get, when we dig into mindset and we peel back all the layers, so much of this comes down to self confidence and the ability to say yes and accept what's possible when it may not look that way. We're trying to, everybody's trying to deal with their past. You had a very difficult past. And so I want to key in on that part. Not so much the part about surrounding yourself with people. I think that's great, and I want to make that. It's important that we underscore that point. But really believing in yourself, you could have very easily not. I mean, of all the people who have self confidence issues, and by the way, it's all of us in entrepreneurship, right? You just do. You deal with, like, can I do this next thing and the next thing? It's just, at times it hits you. It's not like it hits you every time, but there are times where it hits you. So you, of all the people, you had good reason to go, I can't do this. Who am I trying to kid? I know where I was at 36. And how did you shun that? How did you cultivate a mindset that could be confident in taking on the new opportunities that were coming your way?
I think it was helpful that I had people around me that believed in me. And early on, I remember the biggest opportunity that came was a friend of mine had opened up a logistics company in Atlanta, and he asked me to join him and help him with business development. Okay. And I was like, oh, I don't know, dude. I'm pretty busy. And he corrected me very quickly. He says, Dobbin, you're serving coffee at a coffee shop, and then your spare time, you're going to Barnes and Noble and reading books for free because you can't afford them. Like, come and help me, and let's do this together. And he's still a very dear, close friend of mine today. And I was like, you know what, you're right. And it's true. I would go to Barnes, I couldn't afford books. So I had bookmarks, and I would go in and read books and put my bookmark in the books and put them back in the shelf and go back the next day and finish reading. I've always been a reader, and I had to do what I could do. So it's sort of a fusion of, I've done a lot in my past, and I was proud of my accomplishments in my earlier career.
Hmm.
Uh, I've gone all the way, from my perspective, to the bottom, and I'm still on this side of the grass. I'm still
Hmm.
breathing. I've made it through there. I'm capable of anything. If I'm capable of living to that point, then I'm capable of doing that. And I mean, nobody's asking me to be a brain surgeon or something like that. They're asking me to engage in aspects of business that I have some background in. And so I have nothing to lose. One thing is, when if you've gotten to the place that you've lost everything
Hmm.
and come back out of it, the fear of losing everything again isn't as bad.
Yeah, that's really a great point. So, not only do you have the confidence that, hey, I can do this, but you don't have the fear that's pulling at you because you've seen it. You've seen the boogeyman. You know what it is, and so that's really interesting. For everybody that's dealing with a crisis of confidence, and it's going to come for everybody at some point when you're dealing in entrepreneurship. There were several things you said. One was the people that believe in you. Two was you knew where you had been successfully. You looked at the success. Three was you didn't you reframed the negative experience. And I think that's the crucial thing, because we're all dealing with the negative thing, and you can dwell on that, or you can reframe it to be something that is not as fearful as you called out and overcomable because you did it. And the fact you did it means you can now do so many other things. So you called out some really important ways. There's one other thing you didn't explicitly state, but you kind of brushed right past. You were learning. You were in learning mode, going to Barnes and Noble, reading books for free, but you were taking stuff in. You were learning. And that, is one of those things that fuels confidence as we're just learning and picking things up. And and so I think you shared, at least four things that I'm seeing that can help in that crisis of confidence. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been interesting. And I'm still a student. I read avidly, topically. Things have changed over the years. But what's interesting, Clate, last Saturday, I just turned, and this is really putting it out there because people don't necessarily think I'm this old. I just turned 60 on Saturday.
Hey,
Um,
congrats. That's
th-
awesome.
Thank you. I'm proud to be a 60-year-old. But the last couple of years, I think I have exponentially learned more and integrated more of what I'm learning into my life than I have in the preceding 58 years.
That's
Isn't
awesome.
that amazing?
It's
You
amazing.
know, it feels like I'm, like a new beginning at a, relatively ripe age.
Yeah. Well, for a lot of the listeners, they don't know what a cult hero you are within the ecosystem that we built. Whenever we do our conferences, everybody wanted to talk to Dobbin, and it's partly because you are a learner. And it's also because, and people can tell pretty clearly by your answers, you love being around people, and you've always been great at helping others and getting people the resources they need. And but that combination of being a learner and being just loving being around people and those relationships, that's part of what makes Dobbin Buck amazing. So let's talk about this. You're responsible for revenue. You've got this organization. How do you help cultivate mindset in your people? Because you've got you've got this great culture. And and you and I've talked about, we haven't detailed it as much here, but that mindset is the number one key to success for entrepreneurs. And it's part of why I put you in the book, and part of why I wanted to talk with you, because this, and you intentionally cultivate it. Well, I am going to ask you, one or two things that maybe, suggestions that people should do in their daily or weekly or monthly routines to get into the rhythm of cultivating that mindset. But before we go there, talk about it as a leader. How do you help people cultivate a mindset for success when you're leading your organization? Because for entrepreneurs, it's not just us. It's, if we're going to build this company, we've got to also get people developing their mindset for success. Any thoughts on that?
Sure, absolutely. Well, in the early days, it's more like the energies in leadership were about getting buy-in from the
Uh-huh.
culture into the leadership team, the owners of the company, myself. Are we worthy of having you buy into our vision, into our core values, into where we're going, and be able to embrace that without knowing all the details?
Yeah.
Trust is what we'll
Yeah.
call it.
Mm-hmm.
So building on trust over time through a proven track record of success and accomplishments and uh, employees' experiences. And we
Right.
have, I have employees today that have been with me for over 14 years. They've hung
Yeah.
in for this whole journey, and it's really an honor. And so now it's considerably different in regards to mindset, because I think that the mindset comes from further down the org chart as opposed to the C suite, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So our leaders, our middle management, we would, in a bigger company, maybe the director levels of the company or upper management, are invested and aligned with our core values in a way that they have made them their own,
Hmm.
and there's that natural aspect of it, and then through that, creativity can be born to where they can expand upon the initial model or the idea or the vision into something that is more useful within the microcosm or within the team level. So I think that the success today, and I pay close attention to this because it fascinates me, everything that works and is amazing about our company that really had no direct input from me or my partners is exceedingly exciting and
Yes.
promising.
Oh,
I get a
yes.
real thrill from that, In the old days, it was like maybe a little bit of ego in there, like, oh, that wasn't my idea or something like that.
Yeah.
Now it's like, wow, they've figured out some meeting rhythms, the way that they lock arms and the way that they tribe, the way they don't punish each other for making mistakes, like with John Maxwell talking about, um, we're learning from our mistakes, we're failing forward, right? And so there is a culture of analysis and reaction that says, hey, this loss or this failure, this mistake probably saved us hundreds of hours or hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever moving forward. So it was very beneficial that we had to go through this challenge. So I see the leaders within the company being able to recognize, celebrate people, lock arms with them. No person is left alone in a mistake. No person is penalized for having spun their wheels or gone in the wrong direction for a moment or something like that. It's
Hmm.
really a togetherness. And in that is some safety. And when we're talking about mindset, we want to, I think all of us, but employees in particular, they want to feel valued. They
Yeah.
want to feel as though they bring value. They want to feel as though they have a voice. And when I say feel as though, but they don't really, no, they do.
Hmm.
Okay. It's not as though they do have a voice. And, um, and that they aren't alone, that there is a togetherness that is meaningful in a manner that is far beyond accomplishing a set of goals or even alignment with the vision. It is something that is highly personal and very special.
Yeah. Yeah. You've done an amazing job of creating a culture there that people, recognize how special it is. They love being a part of it. And I know that you went through the Elite Entrepreneurs Program and got the purpose, values, mission in place many years ago, and then you've just reinforced that over time. And by the way, Brett and I are working on an Elite Entrepreneurs, Phoenix Forward Elite for our software companies, which I'm really excited about because this is the leadership. We talk about the six keys, and leadership is the sixth key, but then it goes right back into the first key of mindset, and it becomes a cycle of how you drive through leadership. You drive that mindset across your company that enables people to win, to be successful, and you've done an amazing job of that. And again, it doesn't surprise because you care so much about people, and that comes through. And so you're right, when people feel like they're valued and they're able to give value and they're feeling a voice in things, and they have some psychological safety because it's okay to make mistakes. We're going to learn from that and get better. Those are all part of what you've created there to create a culture where people can have a mindset that's not cluttered with a bunch of other stuff. They can just focus and be their best on the job and in building the company. So I love that. Um, let's talk for a second about ego and how ego can undermine entrepreneurs because I see both sides. There's the fear part of it. There's the pride part of it, and kind of arrogance and getting the hubris, I guess we'll call it. when things are going well. But the reality is, you know, I really believe that Ryan Holiday nailed it when he said ego is the enemy, and that if we are not constantly attuned to that as entrepreneurs, especially as the business becomes more successful, but also when it's struggling, because the fear part of it and the lack of confidence, and it's all the ego trying to take control, trying to keep us safe instead of doing what we need to do to build our company. So talk a little bit about what you've seen in your experience and how, you know, I'm always interested in hearing how people use like techniques and tricks to outsmart the ego, their own ego, to not let their ego bring them down. So maybe share a little bit about what you've seen in the ego, and maybe a trick or two that helps you to stay on top and not let the ego take control.
Wow, there's a couple hours of conversation in that alone. Um,
Yeah, can
but
you do that in 30 seconds or so?
yeah, I think we can fast track that. And I couldn't agree more with Ryan Holiday, and I just think he's a brilliant and amazing author to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the confusion of self-confidence, which we were talking about earlier, and ego are two completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one, when it's authentic and realistic, the self-confidence is a amazing tool that can carry us through a lot of chaos or challenges and things like that. The ego is where we are. There's two sides of our being, and one side is this solitude, this individual, this I am Dobbin, that is disconnected from the rest of the world. And then there's another aspect of being that is that we're all interconnectedness. And where this applies in business and where this applies in ego in the workplace is when, and it wouldn't have to be a leader. Ego can exist from
Yeah.
anywhere on the org chart. One of your core values is we leave ego at the door. You know,
Yeah.
I'll never forget that, and I think it readily applies to family life, business life, and every type of life. Visiting the gas station, it applies. And the thing is that with ego, it really doesn't serve anybody. It's a protective measure, I believe,
Yeah.
that individuals fall into the trap. The monkey mind, the chitter chatter that enters into our consciousness around, I'm not being treated fairly, I'm not respected properly, I'm better than that. Don't they know who they're talking to? All these things come in, and we might think to ourselves, where do these thoughts originate? Because I did not ask for them.
Mm-hmm.
I did not reach out to my mind. Oh, please, could you send me some ego to screw up my day and upset people around me? No, it's some sort of lesson that needs to be learned, and we interpret it as a mandate, for an operational mandate, because it's entered our mind.
Mm-hmm.
Key is to separate oneself from that stream of consciousness, to be an observer of it, to take what is useful from it, and to let what isn't useful pass, right?
I
And
love
so,
how you just said that. It's observe it and ask ourselves, is it useful? This is what my
yes,
coach Steve talked to me about a lot of times is, okay, is that thought useful? And when we're going super fast, and especially for a type A entrepreneur, just going, it is amazing how that ticker tape of thoughts can go unobserved, and very subtly we are operating on thoughts that are not useful, that we didn't stop to go, hey, does that, is that helpful to me, to my family, to the company, to others, to mankind? Like, is this is that a useful thing? And so I love your point about observe it and ask, is it useful?
yes, and a lot of people, when you bring up the word ego, are saying, oh, like in the influencer world, or the I'm so great, or the very surface, superficial level of ego.
It's
And
not just
that's,
arrogance.
it goes way deeper. It goes all the way to the seed. It goes all the way to the core,
Yep.
in the smallest little details about how we operate, how we interrelate with business, how we interrelate with one another, and recognizing it. Certainly, I am not a model of perfection in regards to overcoming the ego or something, but I do have a relationship with the ego that is manageable.
Yeah.
And so I pay attention to it, and this is an ongoing daily practice. I have different things that I do on a daily basis that help me to regulate that, and to help me to not avoid suffering without throwing my self-serving notions into the equation.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Absolutely, and I want to get to that. We'll end on that part of just some of the practices that you do to manage the ego and to cultivate a positive mindset, a winning mindset. But I want to just circle back to something you said earlier, and then you just touched on again, because I think it's really important about ego. You started this portion of the conversation by talking about the self, and your own self, and then the interrelatedness to others. And at the heart, the ego is serving self. It is, it's a self-serving, protective, preserve safety, and appealing to the amygdala in our brains, that monkey, that lizard brain, as Seth Godin calls it, the monkey brain, the some call. But it's the lesser self. It's the smaller self back there. And it's just trying to run to make sure that we're safe. We needed that self when we were, in the early days of trying to fend off wild animals to preserve our lives. We don't need that so much these days. We can rely on the interrelatedness much more. And I appreciate you calling that out, because I appreciate it coming from you, because I've observed that in you. I've observed how, coming back full circle to the beginning of the conversation, how you surround yourself with people and relationships who help you grow and be better, and who you get positive energy from. And when we have that, we don't have the fear running us. We don't have the insecurities running us. And I appreciate your calling out the self-serving nature of the ego and the self versus the way that we can be interrelated to curb against those natural tendencies.
Yes.
So talk about some things you do, maybe on a daily or weekly basis, to cultivate a positive mindset and to ward off that ego that would do us in.
This is my favorite topic of all, because I love it so much. 23 years ago, when I got cleaned up, I wound up living in a basement under a rich person's house. And I would walk a lot. And there was this bald-headed guy in the neighborhood that had just come back from Japan, a Zen monk. So he had been in Kyoto at a Rinzai Zen monastery, came back to the United States. I started talking to him, and he said, "Hey, would you like to come over to my house, and I'll teach you how to meditate?" First, red flag, weird bald guy from Japan wants me to come to his house. Got over that. Took a leap of faith, and went, and he took the time to teach me how to do what's called zazen, so seated meditation. We sit on a zafu, which is a round cushion, and under that is a zabuton, which is a rectangular or square cushion. And so for 23 years, I've been meditating. And it's a daily part of my regimen today. But I'll give you a little quick blast of my daily routine. I have a finished sauna. I built a meditation deck on my house, so I have a finished sauna that allows up to 6 people to have a sauna together. It has the stones in it and a ladle. I can pour water on it, get things steamed up. I do this at 176 degrees Fahrenheit. That would be 80 degrees Celsius. That's like the sweet spot for me. 15-minute sessions. I come out of that. I do a cold plunge. So right here at my house where I am, I've got a river in the backyard, which has trout. I love fly fishing. Many people know. But I do a sauna, plunge, sauna, plunge, dry off, and sit for 30 minutes. Now, within the context of those daily practices, it's to achieve a certain stillness within myself that I can slow down that ticker tape parade of entrepreneurial 100,000 thoughts coming at Mach speed all the time. When I go through that contrast therapy between hot and cold, it chills me out. I do this stuff in silence, right? Unless my wife's with me in the sauna, then we might banter a little bit. But then when I sit, I'm in this very calm space to where we talked about the observer, to where with breath work, I can follow my breath. And then as thoughts enter, it's moving slower, it's in slow motion, to where I can say just quickly, oh, isn't it interesting that the ego or the mind, the monkey mind, the lizard brain is feeding me this right now? I can observe it and allow it to pass, because this is not the time for creative problem solving or anything. This is the time for stilling myself to where when I come out of this practice back into the world, so to speak, that I'm bringing that stillness with me. Then if I schedule myself to be creative, I schedule myself to problem solve, I'm coming at it with a more palatable canvas, right?
Yeah, that's right.
To be able to do that. So I don't use those time periods like, oh, I've gotten this great inspiration in meditation. It is about calming me, slowing things down. So then when it comes time and I schedule myself, I'm a big scheduler on when I put time in my calendar to think about things, not just meetings, think about this. People think I'm weird, but it works for me. Well, I do that every day, and there's more to it, but that's the core of my work with the mind, that I do it without fail, unless I'm traveling.
It's so powerful. There are listeners right now all across the spectrum of loving what you're saying and not understanding what you're saying, and maybe even saying, oh, I don't like that, I can't do that. I tried meditation, doesn't work for me. And I will just say this. Entrepreneurs and leaders who are clear win. Getting clear is so valuable. Getting clear on a topic, getting clear with your team, getting clear with your vision, getting clear on how to handle a thorny situation. Getting clear is incredibly valuable and incredibly powerful in growing businesses. And I will tell you that when we were growing at times, I was not as clear as I needed to be. I didn't learn how to do this. And I'm not as good as you are, Dobbin. I have routines that work for me very effectively. But I'm learning how to get better and better at meditation, and it helps me to get clear. And the whole point of how do you get clear is you slow down the insane amount of thought that is going on inside of an entrepreneur's head. And it's crazy how much is going on. I mean, when I say the chaos starts in the mind, it is just, there's so much going on, especially if you are a type A, ADHD, driven, ambitious entrepreneur. The thought process it's so difficult to manage. My coach years ago said, hey, it's time for you to learn meditation. And I tried it and it didn't work for me. And I was frustrated, and I tried it a few different times. I tried it a few different ways, and he kind of could see that, okay, well, let's not force this. But a few years later, I learned it. I learned how to slow my mind down, to observe my thoughts, to really ask, is it useful? And in the process of all of that, I learned how to get clear. And whether you use, a Zen monk's practices, or you use any of the more modern mindfulness techniques that are shared, or you use probably the most ancient ways of, spirituality with prayer and scripture, whatever, however you do it, it is, the point is this. I hope everybody will hear. The point is slow your mind and get clear. It's incredibly powerful. And for this guy who speaks, a million miles a minute and going like crazy, I I found I have to do that. And as I got older, I started to realize, oh, okay, I see the benefits. I get it. But to my younger self, boy, I wish I could help the younger self see that. And to this day, there are days where I get all sped up. Have the conversation with Cherise regularly. Oh, you're too sped up right now. I can see it. Thank you, hon. You're right. So, and it's important that we have those practices. And then as I call out in Conquer the Chaos, midday pauses, moments where you are able to slow it down. Because what I've found, Dobbin, and you were saying it, is the Steve used to tell me miracles happen in space. He used to say that all the time. Miracles happen in space. And the space has to get created in our mind. We have to slow it down. We have to, and then when that happens is we get thoughts of inspiration, of recognition, of reflection, of, oh, this person I need to talk to about this, or this issue. Why didn't I think of that before? I can handle it this way. And so I really appreciate you taking us through your routine of how you use sauna, cold plunge, meditation to get clear.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And, an interesting thing, Clay, a lot of people, you are not yet on the list, but many people from around the world have come here to North Georgia and hung out with me for a few days. And so a lot of times they want to learn fly fishing. I'll teach them and get them on a big trout. They get the hero shot for Instagram, speaking of ego. We do that, but it's all about bringing people in for a few days, working through some strategy or some business oriented goal for that visit, and then taking a full day to really learn how to relax, to let go of the busyness of our entrepreneurial desires and other things, and to be able to step away from that for a minute. And though people get a benefit of whatever strategy or operational efficiencies, hiring, et cetera, they're working through, they want to come visit me for, the thing that they reflect back on about the journey more than anything is those silent, peaceful moments in nature when we're meditating, or they've joined me for a sauna, or we've done the fly fishing, we've been out in the river. And I have a whole ritual around fly fishing, as you would imagine, in how to be in the moment with that. It's not about fly fishing, it's about anything. If tennis, it's a practice that could be applied to any art form or pursuit or sport. Yeah. So they can take that home with them. And to be quite honest, that is what I most enjoy teaching. I get people here thinking they're going to fix their business or learn something about improving their business. The reality of it is, we're going to work on each other.
Right back to key to success number one. Get the mindset right. Well, I love it. I love you, Dobbin. You're amazing. We've known each other for years, and I appreciate the human being you are. You're fantastic, and what you do to help small businesses succeed with GetUWired is great. I don't know how many customers and partners we've had who have benefited, but the ripple effects of your success are just fantastic. So thanks for taking a little bit of time. For those who want to know more about you or what you're doing, how can they get in touch with you, Dobbin?
Well, with the agency, GetUWired, that's G-E-T, the letter U, WIRED.com, GetUWired.com is a gateway to get in touch with my organization. But to get in touch with me personally, if something I've said has inspired you, or have a question, or you'd like to be friends, I'm the only Dobbin Buck in the free world. So I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find on Instagram. I have since taken myself off of Facebook, so I'm not there at all. But through social media, I'm easy to find, and I love meeting new people and collaborating. And you just never know where the next amazing friendship or seed of wisdom or idea is going to come from. So I'm always eager to meet new people and have some fun and get it on.
I love it. All right. Well, Dobbin, thank you for being with us here talking about mindset and the ways we cultivate our minds. And I just, I'll share just for entrepreneurs, if you're in that place where you're just, you hear, I don't know how I can do that. There's two things I want to suggest. Number one, the number one success factor I've seen in successful people is they wake up early. And so just wake up a little earlier to find a little time. And if you start to cultivate that, you will find that you want to feed that more and more and more. And number two is simply breathing. We get so sped up that we don't breathe. 5.5 seconds in slowly in a breath, 5.5 seconds out slowly in a breath. Repeat that for 1 minute. It's amazing what that simple exercise of 1 minute breathing for 5.5 seconds in and out, but what that'll do. So if you find yourself super sped up, like I do at times, like we all do, just stop and breathe and work to get your mind clear once you've done that. When you're clear, you win. And clarity is how we get past the chaos. So thanks, Dobbin, for taking us through that. To everybody else listening, thank you for all you do in growing your businesses and for taking a minute to learn how you can practice the number one key to success of mindset. And until next time, conquer and grow. Thanks so much for listening. Subscribe right here on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app to make sure that you don't miss a single episode of the Conquer the Chaos podcast. And hey, if you like this episode, let's get this out to more entrepreneurs. We all know that it is not easy to grow a great business and a great life. And so let's get this message out to others. Make sure that you hit the like button, that you comment, and that you share it with others so that we can help other entrepreneurs build a great business and a great life as they conquer the chaos. Keep going, keep serving, and keep growing.